Morning folks, and welcome back. This video is all about my bushcraft knives. Now, I'm not a big knife man, I don't collect knives or anything like that, but I do use knives around camp. It's a tool that enables me to cut things, make things, process firewood, cut food, and all manner of tasks around camp. I currently have 4 fixed blade knives that I use, some more often than others, so I thought I would take you in for a closer look, show you some of the features, some of the things that I really like, and compare them. First up is the good old Mora Companion. I've had this knife for years, probably, I don't know, 7-8 years, and it's still going strong. They're cheap as chips. They cost somewhere between 10 and 12 pounds. They're just brilliant as a sort of beginner's starter knife. You know, if you're just starting out, you know, you don't have to spend huge amounts of money on a knife. It's got good quality steel blade. It's not a full tang, and the tang is basically how far the metal comes up the handle. The blade comes up about 3/4 of the way up inside that plastic handle there on a Mora. So there's plenty of metal there to make it a strong enough knife to use. You know, I've really used and abused this knife, and I've never had an issue with it. This is actually the 3rd Mora that I've had. I haven't broken the other 2. One of them, sadly, I put away wet and it rusted badly on the blade, and the other one I keep in my sort of like emergency bag in the Land Rover, buried deep in there. I just don't think you can really fault them. You know, if you're looking for a knife just to start out, that is going to be sharp straight out of the box, and that you can use for 99% of camp duties, get yourself one of these. Or if you're just after like a backup knife, a spare to go with your main bushcraft knife, then you know you'd struggle to find something better, really. It's got a 4-inch blade, just over 100mm, and a slight drop point towards the tip. A Scandinavian grind, or a Scandi grind, so it's just a flat bevel basically, much easier to keep sharp at home or in camp, and the blade thickness is just over 3mm, so ample strength in there for doing most sort of chores around camp. You may notice that the spine looks a little bit different just along this section here, and that's because I've ground that down. When you buy a Mora straight out the box, you'll find that the edges of that spine are slightly rounded, and that's just due to the production of the knife. If you want to use your Mora for striking a ferro rod, you'll find it very difficult with that rounded edge. So if you grab a file and just file away the spine in this area close to the handle and create a nice crisp edge, you'll find that you'll be able to scrape that down your ferro rod and get loads of nice good hot sparks. These knives come with a hard plastic sheath. There's a bit of variation between them. Some have these kind of plastic toggles on, designed to work with those kind of Swedish work trousers. Others don't. This one here didn't have one, and they're a decent sheath. They come with a kind of belt clip on the back and a small drainage hole in the end in case it's raining while you've got it on your belt, and they hold the knife really well. The knife sort of pushes in and clips in with a friction fit, and it's held in there safely. I modified this sheath here just by adding a paracord wrap, so I've always got some emergency cordage and some bicycle inner tube here which I can use as emergency tinder if I need to, and I've just put a loop of paracord threaded through the belt clip, which just helps to hold the knife in, and I can just slip that over the butt of the handle here, and it's just a belt and braces extra precaution to stop the knife from coming out of the sheath unless I want it to. The Mora Companion. Next up is the TBS Boar. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll have seen me use this knife a lot. Up until 18 months, 2 years or so ago, this was my main bushcraft knife. It's a serious brute of a knife. It's heavy, it's got a thick 5mm stainless steel blade in Bowler N695. This is the original version. The newer ones have a thinner blade, but this is, I mean, it's a heavy knife. You can use this for some serious chopping and heavy duty tasks around camp, that's for sure. It's got a lot of weight behind it. It's got a drop point blade, again Scandinavian grind, and full tang. You know, that 5mm goes all the way up through the handle, so it is a seriously strong knife. I chose the stainless steel version of this knife because I live in a damp climate and I do a lot of canoeing, and I just didn't want to run the risk of the blade rusting. But they do this in a high carbon steel if that's what you prefer. And handle wise, I went for micarta, again for the same reasons, just because of canoeing and the damp. But they also do the handle in various other woods and things as well. And it's got these black liners in there. Although I really like this knife and it's great for those heavy camp tasks, it's not so good at the finer stuff. If you want to do any sort of fine carving or anything like that, or you want to use it for preparing vegetables, then you're going to need something a bit thinner. This is basically just a great big wedge, and if you try and cut through a potato, for example, it won't slice through it, it'll just try and split it apart. You know, it'll go in so far and the wedge will just force the potato apart and it'll break it rather than cut it. Sheath wise, you can choose between a dangler sheath or the scout carry, side carry sheath like I went for here. The sheath is alright, it's good sort of thick leather and double stitched. All the stitching has failed on mine down the bottom here. But you know, it's 5 years old, so that's probably to be expected. And I had to replace the popper. Your belt goes through here, there's 2 Velcro loops to hold it onto your belt, and that's it really. I've replaced the original sheath with a dangler sheath from Woodlander Leather, and I just prefer to carry my knife this way rather than cross draw these days. Yeah, it's a good sheath, well made, and it's got a carabiner so you can unclip the knife from your belt loop at night or whatever, and just leave that attached to your belt, so you haven't got to try and sort of thread it through each morning. And yeah, it's got a good tight friction fit, so you know that isn't coming out of there unless you actually want it to. And I also have their scout carry sheath as well, so if you're looking to upgrade from the original sheath to something a bit more heavy duty, then Woodlander Leather might be worth having a look. The TBS bore. Next up is this beauty here. This is a Rob Evans bush tool. I asked Rob to make this for me about 18 months ago as a replacement for my TBS bore, having seen some of his work on Instagram. It's a lovely knife, completely different to the bore. It's much lighter, it's much more refined, it's a narrow blade, but equally capable of most things, you know, in camp. It's absolutely a delight to use. Being a thinner blade, it's much more of an all-rounder. You can use it for that finer carving work, and you can use it for all of your food preparation as well. Cutting meat, cutting vegetables, everything. It's got a steel plate on the butt of the handle, so you can use it for breaking open nuts or for pounding acorns into flour or whatever you might need to do. The blade is 3.5mm thick and 4 inches 100mm long, and it's made from RWL 34, which is a super steel, and like stainless steel, it won't rust. Really, really good quality steel. Like with the bore, I went for micarta scales on the handle just because it's much better in the damp, and then it's got these really nice looking orange and white liners, G10 liners. It's got a dangler sheath in veg-tan leather, also made by Rob. Again, friction fit and snaps just on the belt loop there, so you can fasten it to your belt. Rob Evans bush tool. Number 4 is this gorgeous knife made by Rob Taylor at Old Ways Bushcraft. Rob is a friend of mine. We were on the hunter-gatherer challenge a couple of years ago, the 5-day sort of primitive survival challenge, and he's a really good bloke and makes very nice knives. Rob wanted to make me a knife, something a bit different to what I was used to, and after bouncing a few ideas around, this is what he came up with. The blade is bigger than on my previous knives. It's 4.5 inches long, 125mm, 1.5 inches wide and 4mm thick. So having all that extra steel means that there's a good amount of weight behind it, so you can use it for those heavier duty chopping tasks around camp. It feels really nice in the hand. The steel is Bowler K110 D2 hardened tool steel, and it's got a flat sabre grind with a secondary bevel. Just like with the previous two knives, it's full tang, so lots of strength, and we've got these gorgeous stabilised box elder scales with orange liners. Absolutely stunning. Almost looks like fire. Rob made this nice leather dangler sheath for it with one of these cool Castrom carabiners, so you can take it off your belt and clip it back on really easily, and that just has a good tight friction fit. This is a superb general purpose all-round camp knife. Just as at home chopping great big lumps of wood as it is finer carving. Yeah, lovely knife. Rob tends to put any knives he's got for sale on his Instagram page, so go and check that out or contact him through Instagram to see what he's got. Yeah, very nice, very happy. So those are the knives that I'm currently using. I'm not saying they're better or worse than other knives you can get. You know, there are thousands of them out there on the market to choose from. They're just what I use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.